We're going to talk about a story today that happened over 3,000 years ago, give or take a few decades. This story is from the Hebrew Scriptures, what some call the Old Testament. There once lived a prophet named Samuel. And Samuel lived at a really interesting time in history. Israeli tribes hadn't had a king for a really long time. They kind of ruled themselves, and during times of crisis, a charismatic individual would rise up and lead the people in whatever needed to be led, and then that person would go back to their farm, probably his farm, let's be honest, and they just kept doing their own thing. However, there were some individuals called judges. There were individuals called judges who were sometimes warriors, not warriors, warriors. And sometimes they were just really wise men. And some were priests, and they would kind of, when there was a dispute, the judges would decide what was right, what was wrong, what was according to biblical law, what wasn't. And sometimes the judges would even lead tribes in times of war. Okay, so Samuel was a judge. And Samuel was a judge who was really, really known for his wisdom. And he was a judge who was known as a really good prayer. My Southern is getting worse and worse as time goes on. Samuel was an excellent prayer. He became so good at prayer that God took notice and started talking back. So Samuel became a major prophet, kind of the first major prophet since Moses. So Samuel was a big deal. He was kind of like the guy that everybody looked to, okay? So as time went on and Samuel got older, he had two sons, and they grew up, and as one does, he appointed them as judges because he could kind of do whatever he wanted because everybody loved him. So he appointed his two sons as judges. Turns out they weren't that great. In fact, they kind of got to be known for taking bribes to settle things a certain way. Yes, a tale as old as time and still happening today. So Samuel was getting on, and the other elders kind of started looking around, and they came together and they said to Samuel, they said, look, you're getting older and your sons are duds. So we think it's time to appoint a king. They said, other nations have kings. We want one too. This is the NIV version, the New International Version of the Bible. It's one of my favorites. So this is what they said. But when they said, give us a king to lead us, this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to God, and God told him, listen. Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It's not you that they're rejecting. They're not rejecting your wisdom and your leadership. They have rejected me, God, as they have done since the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly, and let them know what a king who would reign over them would do. So God says, basically, listen to their issues, like really listen to them, but also be really honest with them about what kinghood would mean. So Samuel went to the people and he said, look, I prayed about it and I talked to God, and we think this is a terrible idea. He said, look, if we have a king, he's going to send your sons to war, and he's going to enslave your daughters. He's going to take your property, and he's going to give it to his officials and attendants. Basically, he's going to tax you, and he's going to give the proceeds of that to his rich cronies. Samuel said, he'll take your stuff and you'll no longer be free. And then he says, and when that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and God will not answer you on that day. So what do you think happened? Do you think they listened to Samuel and thought, you know what, Samuel's really wise and he actually talks to God and God talks back to him, so we should probably not do a king. Let's stick with the system we have. Do you think that's what the people said? No. Y'all are smart. But the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said, we want a king over us. Then we'll be like all the other nations with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles. When Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before God, and God answered, listen to them then. Give them a king. So that's what they did. There's a lot to unpack here. I do want to tell you that the king that they chose, Saul, turned out to be a really big dud. It seems that they mostly chose him because he was a head taller than everybody else. That didn't mean he was smarter or better than everybody else, and he became really corrupt. It was a whole thing that we don't have time for today. Kings. I want to unpack some other things from this really important story. Remember back in the story when God said, it's not you they've rejected, it's me? I was thinking about that for a long time. What does that mean? How do you reject God? What does this mean? You made other idols important instead of me. Here's what this means. God is just another word for power, authority, divine guidance, divine wisdom. Every single time we look to someone out there to fix things, we are rejecting the divine power within us. It's right here. And we do it as individuals, and we do it as groups. We've been doing it for thousands of years, y'all. We're really good at it at this point. They said, we'll have a king to go out before us and fight our battles. Look, I get it. I have some things that I'm up against in my life that I think it would be really nice if somebody came along and swept them away and took care of that for me. Do you? There are things in your life, too, that sometimes you just go, God, if somebody would just do something about this. And then you remember you're somebody, right? Many of us, if not all of us, have things that we wish could be different and that someone would do something about. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. I have a lot of compassion for that because I have that in my own life as well. I'm going to fast forward to the end of the talk here for a second. What this is teaching us is that when we feel that powerlessness, that's a clue to us that we have placed God away from us, and it's time to place it, to put it back where it belongs. Power is here. Last week, Reverend Shannon taught us about the law of correspondence, which states that what happens at one level of life is mirrored by the other levels of life. Sometimes we talk about laws or principles using terms like micro and macro. That's how I like to think of it. Like what happens in my life is actually a reflection of all of life and vice versa. What happens in all of life is a reflection of what's happening here. And so this consciousness of powerlessness that we see in the world is a direct reflection of the places in us that feel powerless. And it's okay. But I want you to notice that I said it's the places in us that feel powerless, not that are powerless. And there's a really big difference there. The truth is, you are not powerless. We are not powerless. It's important to acknowledge in this moment that there are people right here in America today who don't think democracy is working for them, and they want a strong leader. We call that an authoritarian, even a king. And I don't even think jokes about American kings are funny. But what this story from Samuel taught me is that there are cycles to human history, and we're not exempt from them. Who are we to think this is something that used to happen but isn't going to happen to me? Oh no, not going to happen to me. Who are we? These cycles in human history actually bring me some level of comfort. We've been here before. This is nothing new. But what is new is that this is our opportunity to do the right thing, our chance to do the right thing. Y'all, I don't want a king. I'm with Samuel on this one. We don't do kingdoms anymore, friends, but we do recognize each other as kin. So this is our kingdom. And in this kingdom, we extend the utmost grace to each other, the utmost grace to ourselves, and we work tirelessly to lift each other up. We honor each other by doing our inner work to heal those places in our life where we notice that we're looking outside of ourselves for a savior, where we're looking for somebody else to fix it. We heal that in ourselves, and then we walk our healed selves out into this kingdom and do our work together. I did a little bit of that this week. I had quite a week last week, I'll tell you, and a lot of it felt really big and important and scary. So I'm going to tell you about a little bit of that. On Sunday, after we had our kickoff meeting for our Spirit-led social action groups, by the way, we had 90 people show up in person and online for the What Is Mine to Do groups. That is mind-blowing to me. That's how we do this together. We show up and do whatever piece we feel called to do. It's powerful. It's powerful. Reverend Shannon and I are so excited about this. So that felt big and important. And then later that same evening, Reverend Shannon and Michael and I met some of you, I see you, at our Senator's Town Hall meeting at the local community college. This was brand new to me. I vote. That's about it. I call, I make my voice heard, but I have never been super politically active. I have done marches for common sense gun reform. John was an infant in a stroller, and I'm marching down the streets of Portland. That was awesome. But this is outside of my comfort zone, politics. And so I've never been in the same room with a senator. We go. There was seating for 1,500 people, and that filled up a solid hour before the event started, and there were people lining the edges. So this is what happened. Everybody got a ticket, like those, what do they call them? Raffle tickets. Thanks, Michael. Like those raffle tickets. They got those tickets, and they took half, and we took half, and everybody got a ticket, and they put 1,500 tickets in a basket, and he pulled out a ticket, and if your number got called, you got to ask him a question. This man just listened. He didn't give a stump speech. He didn't tell us what to do or what was going to happen. He listened to our questions, and he answered them, and it was really, really interesting. Our senator, the senator that, one of our two, his name is Jeff Merkley, and I learned that he's a really, really smart man. But this was a fascinating exercise in democracy that I had never experienced before. And what I felt in the room was genuine engagement. I'm guessing there were closer to 1,800 people there than 1,500, don't you think? Yeah, it was really, really full. So I felt genuine engagement, and it was really nice to be in a room that was energized with engagement in our democracy. It was a really cool experience. I felt a lot of anxiety. I had anxiety. I didn't take a purse because I assumed that getting through security was going to be like a whole thing. And so I just threw my keys to Michael and shoved my phone in my pocket and went. There was no security. They weren't checking bags for guns. I felt a little bit anxious. We live in a very purple area here in Clackamas County. And I wasn't sure. I didn't know what to expect, so I was feeling anxious. The other thing I felt in the room was a deep desire to do something. And sitting and listening, in some ways, felt powerless. What are we to do? It's not time to do yet, but I need to do something. We can't do anything yet. We have to let the process take care of itself. That doesn't feel safe. So there was a lot of that in the room. But ultimately, it was just really inspiring to see so many people engaged with the political process. It struck me about halfway through that Jeff Merkley isn't going to save us. And then I realized I'm just like Samuel's people. I was hoping that he would say something, that he would do something, that he would tell us it's okay, we've got this. He didn't say it's okay, we've got this. Jeff Merkley's not going to save us, y'all. And guess why? Because that's not what this is about. This is about our exercise of power. The moment I realized that Jeff Merkley wasn't going to save us, you know what I did? I smiled. I smiled real big, because I recognized that lack consciousness in myself that said, I can't fix this, you fix this, you go do this, you take the power and run. No. That is not how we're going to roll in this. This is not how democracy works. One person doesn't go and fix it. Just like in Samuel's time, I had forgotten, just as we all forget sometimes, that authority and power don't belong to Jeff Merkley. They are aspects of the divine. They are aspects of God. And we are the holy temple where power resides. We are the authority on our life and on how we choose to live that with each other in this kingdom of grace. God in us is power itself. And every single time we're looking around for somebody to save us, we're just taking our power and just placing it over there. Every single time we disempower ourselves. I came across this great quote by American poet and businesswoman Susan Polish Schutz. And she said, "This life is yours. This life is yours. Take the power to choose what you want to do and do it well. Take the power to love what you want in life and to love it honestly. Take the power to walk in the forest and be a part of nature. Take the power to control your own life. No one else can do it for you. Take the power to make your life happy. Take it. Take it. Don't wait for somebody to hand it to you. Take it. I believe, as Robert F. Kennedy said, JFK, sorry. Whew, Lord. Rewind. I believe, as John F. Kennedy said, that a rising tide does lift all boats. And that when we empower ourselves and we do that work to make ourselves happy, we do lift the consciousness of the world. When we aren't perpetrating the consciousness of powerlessness, we empower those around us because we stop hearing it. We stop talking about it. We stop, oh, woe is me-ing. Oh, woe is me. Oh, woe is me. One of the things I did this week to take my power back was something else that was like really outside of my comfort zone. I spent the day on Tuesday at the state capitol in Salem, Oregon, where I was testifying. Some of you are aware that our son has Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And I was testifying to have Duchenne and 4 other rare diseases added to the newborn screening panel, the blood tests that they do on newborns, so that families can be made aware sooner and can prepare for what a disease like this looks like and lives like. So I spent the day at the Oregon Capitol testifying, and it was fascinating. Again, so far out of my comfort zone, y'all. The only time I've ever been to Salem was for the yearly drama convention that my daughters go to because we're theater kids. So, like I may have driven past the Capitol, but I wouldn't have known that that's what it was. So, it was so far out of my comfort zone. I was rubbing elbows with politicians and lobbyists, and it was difficult to sit there and tell my family's story to a bunch of strangers and then ask them to help make the world a better place. It was really uncomfortable. It was really hard for me. And I realized that one of the reasons I was afraid, that I felt actual fear, is that it was completely new and unknown to me. I didn't have a picture of what it was going to look like. And fear of the unknown is a real thing for me. And because of that, I sometimes let it hold me back. I sometimes hand my power directly to that fear of the unknown, instead of just recognizing that when I am inspired by the divine to do something, there's a reason for that. And I don't have to know what it looks like because I know what God looks like. I know what power looks like when I stand in it. Fear of the unknown has no more place here for us, because when we put our power there, we're disempowering God in us. That's what it means in the Bible when they talk about placing false gods before me. That's what's happening. Okay, so I did it. I pushed past the fear and I found my courage. I will admit that I had people praying for me all day, and I felt that like a bracing against my back. They knew that God was with me, so I knew that God was with me. Y'all, put in those prayer requests. Our practitioners pray every single day for us. Put in those prayer requests. In her new book, coming out next week, and we're going to be having a visit from her later this month, Tama Keeves says, "You may doubt the genius and instruction of your own life force, but I don't. I've seen what happens when we trust our power." Have you seen what happens in your life when you trust your power, when you trust the power within you, when you trust divine wisdom, divine knowing? Have you seen what happens in your life? I have seen it. We have to remember that. We have to keep that at the forefront of our minds and not let anything that looks like fear guide us away from that. Don't make fear our idol. We make God the true power, not the fear. We're in a place today, y'all. We're having something going on here. So I want y'all to keep trusting your power, because your true power is divinely inspired. You are ordained and anointed as the place where love is made manifest in the world. You are the living temple of divine power. Did you know that? You're the living temple of divine power. And it's important that we recognize when we're turning away from that and turn back. We just keep coming back, y'all. I finally realized this week it's about right-sizing fear and right-placing power. Right-sizing fear and right-placing power. Remember what Reverend Shannon told us last week, that God never goes anywhere. It's just that sometimes we forget. We forget that power is right here. And so the invitation this week, when you feel powerless, is to remind yourself, I am the living temple of divine power. I am the living temple of divine power. Say it with me. I am the living temple of divine power. Again, I am the living temple of divine power. Did you feel it? Did you feel it rise up in you? I felt it rise up in the room. Hey, Brian, what was that song we did for spiritual practice? Oh, let this great power. Hey, Darcy, grab a mic. Hey, Rand, I'm going off script, dude. I don't know what key we're in, so I'm not going to start it. Oh, let this great, is that it? Sing it. I want to hear it. John, can we get the lyrics? Oh, let this great power wash through. Oh, let this great power wash through. You don't even have to know.
I don't have to wonder what to say or what to do.
You just let it.
This great power wash through.
One more time. One more time, y'all. Don't let this